Well, we got some good news, some not so good news for the Hoosiers on the injury front on Monday. Certainly a lot to talk about as we kind of move forward past that horrendous Penn State game. Jared joins me today as we have a bit of a discussion on where the Hoosiers are offensively, defensively, and how they can kind of salvage the season coming up.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, guys? It is Tuesday, October 5th. We are back to some form of normalcy as I am joined by Jared today on today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers, your daily source for IU athletic news. I am, as always, Jacob Rude. Jared, how did you handle the, I don't even know what to call it, Facebook, Instagram, the social media shutdown for the day?
By spending it almost exclusively on Twitter. By spending it almost exclusively on Twitter, and also refreshing my bank account after taking the under in that Penn State-Indiana game, as well as taking Penn State with the spread. That was easy money.
Yeah, we certainly said that. My worst habit is giving these recommendations and then not doing them myself. So I took Penn State. That one seemed really easy. I did not take the under. Hell, I should have just parlayed them because I didn't think there was any chance IU was scoring that much. But alas, one of these days I'll eventually take my own advice. But we have quite a lot to talk about from that game. Michael Penix injury update, some transfer news, some good injury updates regarding the defense, and we're going to try to talk about what is wrong with this offense. That is certainly a discussion that'll take multiple podcasts to get through, but we're going to have a little bit of that discussion today. Before we do that, be sure you guys are heading over to our sponsor of today's show, Rock Auto, where they have amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit rockauto.com. Tell them Locked On sent you. Thanks for making Locked On Hoosiers your first listen every day. And remember, Locked On Hoosiers is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube at Locked On Hoosiers. As I said, got some Michael Penix injury news. Not the worst case scenario. Ultimately, it is ruled a left AC separation. Did a bit of research, did a bit of asking some physical therapist friends. It's not an injury that there's kind of a baseline for. It depends on how severe the separation is, if there's any other injuries involved with it, which is why Indiana said he is considered week to week right now, and that they are going to rehab it, that surgery is not the option, at least right now. It was a little interesting wording by Tom Allen, but right now they are not considering surgery. They think rehab will be enough. This is different than the 2019 season. It was a right sternoclavicular joint. Again, I certainly don't know what that is, but in 2019 he missed a season, or his season was cut short because of an injury, but that was to the other shoulder. Ultimately, Jared, I just come away from this more than anything just feeling awful for Michael Penix that yet another injury has kind of, I don't know if it's ended his season early, but it's certainly stopped his season for now.
Yeah, and look, on one hand, you hate to be the guy and say, obviously could have seen it coming because no one can see an injury coming. I know Michael Penix has been an injury-prone quarterback, one of the most injury-prone positions out there. But again, it's just he's a 21-year-old kid, 22-year-old kid. It's tough. At the end of the day, he's just a kid trying to live out his dream, and it just keeps getting taken away from him. And you saw last year what he could finally look like when he was healthy and confident, and it just keeps getting sapped from him. And I mean, even seeing how he performed this year, you wonder if last year's injury was kind of the breaking point mentally for him.
Yeah.
And now this, obviously this just only piles on. So my thoughts are with you, Michael. Please, you'll get through this. We'll all sort of get through this together, and we're rooting for you. And we hope to see you in Crimson and Cream again this season.
Yeah, and it's certainly, I mean, we'll never know unless kind of Michael talks about it himself, but it certainly seemed like he just kind of was thinking about all those injuries at times this season. Even if you can clear all the hurdles physically, there's a lot of mental hurdles that I can't imagine he has to clear each time this kind of happens. And you're right, it just never seemed like mentally he was where he was, and really physically for part of the year. He was where he was last season this year. There was certainly something wrong, and it wasn't even the shoulder injury. There just felt like something was wrong in that Penn State game. They talked about his other knee, his left knee, at one point. Again, I can only hope that he gets healthy. Hopefully he plays for the Hoosiers again. Perhaps this season, like I said, they did not rule him out, but for now, it's just well wishes on him getting healthy. This means now that Jack Tuttle will step in at quarterback. When it comes to backups, I would imagine there are few better, save for kind of those blue blood programs that always have 5-star backup quarterbacks. But for the Hoosiers, this isn't really necessarily a step down. Just what are your kind of thoughts on Tuttle stepping in? We got a bit of a glimpse of him against Penn State. Some good, some bad, but what do you think of him stepping in as a starter now?
I think at best it's a lateral move. It would be one thing if Tuttle was a totally different type of quarterback. Then you could sort of see, how maybe changing up the offense could benefit the team. Maybe some more read options, have the quarterback run if he was mobile. He's not. He doesn't provide more athleticism. Doesn't really have a better arm. Maybe a little bit better of a deep ball, just a pure deep ball. But even then, it's not great. I believe in Jack Tuttle as much as I believe in any Indiana quarterback. Honestly, he sort of gives off that carbon copy of an Indiana quarterback vibe. But unless he's, coming in as some sort of athletic freak, which he's not, you're not changing the offense. I don't think much around this move really changes things for Indiana. Obviously, the ceiling is lowered. The floor is lowered. But there's, from starter to backup, it's about as lateral a move as you can get, especially given the way that Michael was playing this season.
Yeah, and I should say officially, Jack Tuttle has not been named the starter. I probably should have led with that. But just kind of the vibe, I would imagine that they're going to consider Penix week to week all the way through next week. But I would be very surprised if it is not Tuttle in next week's Michigan State game. And that's just kind of the mindset I'm going to carry. I will be pleasantly surprised if Penix is out there, but I would imagine this staff is just going to kind of want him to get fully healthy, get back to as close as 100% as he can get, and before they put him back out there, because we saw kind of what a not 100% Michael Penix looked like this year, and it wasn't good. So Jack Tuttle, as you said, is a lateral move. There are some positives. You talked about the deep ball, but then we saw the interception he had was, I don't even really know how to describe that. We'll chalk that one up for now to not having work with the number one offense. He'll certainly, in that sense, there may not be a better time for this to happen because he's going to have 2 weeks to work with that number one offense. But there's a lot of issues with this offense right now, and I want to talk to you about that, see if we can kind of figure out where the Hoosiers are going on that side of the ball. Before we do that, let's talk about Prize Picks. Again, like I said yesterday, I hope you guys took the under in pretty much every prop that they offered for IU, because I'd imagine all of them hit. Prize Picks is the leader in college sports daily fantasy. They offer more props than anyone in the world, from the star players on the Power Fives to mid-majors that you probably haven't even heard of. They have every prop you can think of, from yardage, touchdowns, interceptions thrown, receptions, whatever it is that you could imagine. All users that deposit and use promo code Locked On will receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. They're giving you free money. Just use that promo code Locked On. The way it works, you pick 2 to 5 players, pick the over or under on their prop, and you can win up to 10 times your amount on any entry. They offer mixed sports entries as well. They have about every sport you could possibly imagine on there. So don't hesitate. Check out prizepicks.com and use promo code Locked On, or go to the App Store, download the app today. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. We also told you about Rock Auto at the beginning of the show. Whether you have a Ford or a Fiat, these guys have you covered. There's nothing I have ever really liked about going to an auto parts store, and certainly not during a pandemic. So really, there's no need to do that when you can get all the parts you need at rockauto.com. Saves you time, saves you money. Why choose to spend 30, 50, 100% more on parts when you can get them at rockauto.com? They're a family business, been serving do-it-yourselfers for 20 years. So go explore their easy-to-use website today. Go to rockauto.com, use that promo code Locked On, or tell them, write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so that they know that we sent you. They have you guys covered. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need, rockauto.com. Jared, something that has not been reliable this season has been that Hoosier offense. Just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on that Penn State game and just what you saw, or I guess mainly didn't see, from that offense.
Well, my issues are that what I saw was exactly what I didn't want to see. Just a total inability to move the ball. I mean, even it was a bad omen when we had the ball. I think, what was it, from their 9-yard line? We took over after that first interception, gained a little bit of momentum back, weren't able to punch it in. By the way, right decision to go for it. I will stand by that. It's nice. I think I texted it to you that it's nice that we at least have a coach that is going to try to win games as opposed to not try to lose them. Yeah. I understand some people's mentality with, look, you're on the road to Penn State, take the points, live to see another possession. But I really do appreciate them going for that. And then, look, everything stems from the offensive line, everything. And it's, look, the offensive line doesn't drop passes. I understand that. They don't run routes. I understand that. But the real concerning thing for me is this is now the second consecutive year that the offensive line has been, I wish I had a better word than horrendous, but it's been horrendous.
Yeah.
So it's 2 straight years. And it's not like, it's not like any other position in the sport where you can bring in one guy and he changes a lot for you. I mean, this is, to change the offensive line, you need 3 guys minimum who can really come in and just start bullying other teams. It's college sports. You don't have free agency. You can't do that. You can't go out and splurge. And we're not Alabama. We're not Ohio State. We're not going to go out and get those 5-star guys from all over the country. I mean, it really is a make the best of what you have situation. So I don't know, at this point, I'm looking almost towards next year because what are we, 5 weeks in? We know what this offensive line is. No scheme changes are coming to fix it. There's no miracle worker. There's no athletic quarterback coming in who's going to be able to avoid these rushes and get outside the pocket and make something happen. So looking towards the future, I think maybe you're going to have to start looking at, making a change on the coaching staff for an offensive line coach. I mean, just something needs a spark, because again, it would be one thing if it was a bad year, it'd be one thing if there were numerous injuries all over the board, but it's 2 consecutive years of just pathetic offensive line play. And I don't see a way for the rest of the season to fix it. And that's a real problem, especially with the next 3 games coming up.
Yeah, it's what we've harped on. And as you said, it gets kind of old, I'm sure, for you guys to hear, but as long as the offensive line struggles this much, it really just derails everything you're trying to do offensively. Certainly Penix not being 100% didn't help. certainly the receivers dropping balls at just a wildly alarming rate. And then having no run game kind of comes down to the offensive line, because I think Stephen Carr is really good. So just kind of mix all that up, and you get this offense that is just a mess right now. And the problem is, as you said, no, there's no one person that's going to fix it. I thought those on social media probably saw on Saturday the calls to bench Penix were probably as loud as they've been all season. Honestly, it was, I don't even know what the word, telling almost. Literally the first play, Jack Tuttle comes in and is absolutely hammered on a sack, where just right in his face, gets drilled, knocked to the ground. And I believe that was on third down that ended the drive. It doesn't matter if Jack Tuttle's a quarterback. Like, this offensive line is bad no matter who's taking the snaps under center, and that just derails everything. On top of that, though, there's been a lot more talk as the season has gone on about offensive coordinator Nick Sheridan. His play calling has left a lot to be desired. And again, this is just kind of another cog in what has made this a really disappointing season offensively. I think at times he's too predictable and conservative. You pretty much know that a run is coming on first down to start every drive, and on just most first downs in general. And it's something that defenses have caught on to as well. And when you become predictable, then defenses can capitalize on that. What have you thought about what Sheridan has done this season?
It's hard. It's really hard, especially, again, when the offensive line is so bad. It's hard to critique play calling when plays don't have time to develop. Again, part of that is also on the quarterback. When you have a quarterback that's just not really mobile and not comfortable, forget about even being mobile, not comfortable with his legs at all, not comfortable throwing on the run. So look, it's hard. Obviously, there's a lot of criticism there. But I think that sort of goes both ways with the quarterback position, the offensive line, as well as the play calling. I've come on this podcast every week and talked my throat off about how they need to use Hendershot more, how he's the key to the offense. They haven't really done that. But again, is that because Hendershot is the third read and we only have time to make one or two reads?
Yeah. Is
that teams are focusing on him, knowing that if we don't get it to Hendershot, we're going to target Freifogel for 15 times a game? I mean, it's really hard to blame Nick Sheridan for the play calling when just so much has gone wrong with the whole system. And I don't think we need a system overhaul. I don't think people should be calling for Sheridan's job. I think that evaluation should come next year. But it has, look, that's not to absolve him from blame. He has not been very good. The play calling has not been very creative. The best offensive coordinators scheme players open. He has been unable to do that. But again, there's so much wrong. I both can't absolve him from blame, and I can't place the whole thing on him. I just don't think that's fair.
Yeah, and I guess kind of in his defense, there have been times when guys have been open, a lot of times Ty Freifogel, and he's dropped passes. And that's not on Nick Sheridan. Like, he's running plays to help get those guys open, and they're just dropping the ball. So situations like that, like, I don't know what else he's supposed to do. But as you said, this is a thing that just, I don't think there's any one person, one unit, one issue that is playing the biggest role in this. It's just one of those things where it's all kind of added up to the performance we got on Saturday, which was one of the worst offensive performances I can remember. And the fact that it was their first shutout since 2000 kind of signifies that. The Hoosiers got some surprise news, I should say, offensively on Monday with a transfer announcement that we will talk a little bit about right in a second. Before we do that, as you mentioned at the beginning of the show, Jared, we gave you guys the BetOnline advice last week, and we nailed the predictions. Even if I didn't take my own advice, BetOnline is the number one spot for all your pro and college football action this season. They have an updated site with a new interface, more odds, props, contests than ever before. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Again, we're giving you guys money. Don't forget to use our promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus. So whether it's football, basketball, boxing, playoff baseball is starting, your favorite Vegas casino games, they have you guys covered this year. BetOnline's the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. Also need to talk to you guys about SweatBlock. Listen, there's some things that are just kind of not easy to talk about, and one of them is excessive sweating. And there's nothing more embarrassing than being out at the bar on a date with some friends. Raise your arm up and you have those sweat rings. So we have the product for you. SweatBlock Antiperspirant wipes are doctor created, doctor recommended. You simply apply the wipe before bed at night. Wake up the next day, shower, you're set. Works up to 7 days. There's a dry shirt guarantee. If SweatBlock doesn't keep you dry, you get your money back. It's featured and tested by firefighters on the Rachel Ray Show. It's been a bestseller on Amazon for the past 10 years. Over 13,000 reviews. It's a proven product. I've used it. I can recommend it for whatever that's worth. So head on over today to sweatblock.com. Get it 20% off with promo code LOCKEDON. That is promo code LOCKEDON to get 20% off at sweatblock.com. Also available at Amazon, as we said, or CVS. As we mentioned, the Hoosiers got a bit of a surprise with the announcement on Monday morning that Tim Baldwin would be entering the transfer portal. Baldwin lost out on the starting job during fall camp to Stephen Carr. Through the first 5 games, had 28 carries for 108 yards. Do you really have much of a kind of reaction to this news, Jared?
No, on a team full of just guys, he seems to just be another guy, quite frankly. Backfield's a little less crowded than they probably would like, given how they like to rotate running backs. But no, it's been Stephen Carr's job all season. He's been one of the few players who can really, hang his hat on the workload that he's done so far. So I don't really have much. I don't think this swings the needle one way or the other.
Yeah, the interesting aspect is that it thins out the running back room again. The Hoosiers came into fall camp with running back being arguably, maybe not even arguably, their deepest position, with Carr, with Samson James, with Tim Baldwin. But Carr won out the starting job, as you said. Samson James immediately left, and Baldwin, I guess, wasn't happy with his backup role. I could understand why, only getting 5 carries a game. But ultimately, aside from that Maryland game last year, where he ran for 106 yards and on 16 carries, he hasn't really done a lot. So, as you said, it's kind of another guy, but this was Stephen Carr's job anyway. It opens up some room for Davion Irvin Poindexter. Chris Childers is another guy that Tom Allen mentioned. Also mentioned Charlie Spiegel, who IU high school or Indiana high school football fans will remember for setting the high school rushing record at New Palestine. But those guys are walk-ons, so I don't really know how much to expect from them. Ultimately, though, this was Stephen Carr's job. Want to finish the podcast today on a positive note, because it's been a lot of doom and gloom after this Penn State game. But I want to talk about this defense, because I talked about them yesterday. honestly, Saturday's performance was one of my favorite defensive performances I can remember, just because of the way that this team has not given up, will not give up on that side of the ball. I mentioned the goal line stand in the fourth quarter where it had been really easy to just kind of honestly give up, let them score. But the fact that they held them at the 1 yard line, I think just kind of typifies the fight that this defense has. What do you think of the defense on Saturday?
I mean, there's no more that can possibly be said about them. They work their butts off, no matter what the score is. They didn't hang their heads. It would have been, like you said, very easy to hang their heads. And quite frankly, one thing that I've been really very impressed with this year is, given the anemic offensive performances we've put out, it's very, very easy for defenses to get frustrated, to lose focus, forget about giving up big plays, but just taking unnecessary hits. You'll see taunting penalties after a loss of 2. Just leading with helmets. I mean, they've been very disciplined and they've held their own, more than held their own, really. They have been the entire team. So it would be so easy for them to just fold and say, we're holding up our end of the bargain. Why the hell can't you hold up yours? They haven't done that. I think that's a testament to the coaching staff. I think it really is that they've been able to keep these kids disciplined. And again, you're dealing with a bunch of 18 to 21-year-old kids. It's not easy to do, not easy to keep their emotions in check. And a beyond special shout out to Micah McFadden. We were texting this weekend. He might be the best individual player of this era of Indiana football, quite frankly, since Antoine Randall. I mean, we were comparing, with Tevin Coleman. He might be equal to Tevin Coleman. This is a special football player, regardless of what happens at the next step, the next stages of his career, what his pro aspects look like. It doesn't matter. He is a great Indiana football player, and he has set the tone, and he has carried this defense all year. We talked about, in the Cincinnati game, him getting ejected for targeting changed the game. We're still mad about that. But I just so much credit to the defense as a whole, and especially to Micah McFadden individually, who is just a special football player and a special kid.
Yeah, when you're listing off players, the top IU players kind of this era, I mean, it's a very short list. It's Randall L. that you mentioned. It's Tevin Coleman. It's maybe James Hardy, even though I believe he was only 2, maybe 3 years. And there's
one year of Jordan Howard.
Yes, the 1 year of Jordan Howard was incredible. The Michigan game, especially. Tigray Scales was another great one. But I mean, these are elite guys. And just looking at McFadden, statistically, second on the team in tackles, first on the team in tackles for loss, second in sacks, first in quarterback hits, first in fumble recoveries, first in forced fumbles. It seems like every time there's like a big kind of momentum changing defensive play, or just a momentum stopping play for the offense, it's McFadden. And I just can't sing his praise enough. Again, as you said as well, when it comes to the defense as a whole, if we're kind of placing some blame on Nick Sheridan and talking about that, credit goes to Charlton Warren for coming in his first year. I know this is kind of a Tom Allen defense, and that's his specialty, but Charlton Warren stepping in and this team not missing a beat is a testament to him and to this program that Tom Allen has built. But I wanted to take a segment and just talk about Micah McFadden, talk about this defense, because this is a truly, truly special defense, I think. I don't know that statistically they're ever going to get to be top 10 like Tom Allen wanted them to be this year. As you mentioned, the offense kind of continually puts him behind the 8 ball. But this is perhaps my favorite defensive unit at IU. I know that's not a high bar to clear with the Kevin Wilson years being a good chunk of that, but shout out to that defense. And what they've been able to accomplish this season.
And I'd just like to say they would be Tom Allen's top 10 defense if the offense could sustain drives. Forget about points and forget about winning. The amount the stats would just reflect their effort and how good they've been if you could get even 2 or 3 7-minute drives a game that end in field goals. I mean, it really does not matter. That sustained offense is the one thing stopping them from being a top 10 unit. I'm considering them a top 10 unit. That's my moral victory for the season. I had to get that off my chest.
No, you're 100% right. If this was last year's offense, yeah, this is easily a top 10 defense statistically. So you're 100% right on that. Thanks again, guys, for making Locked On Hoosiers your first listen every day. We'll be back tomorrow, probably take a break from some of the football talk about some other football, the men's and women's soccer teams. Now, for your second listen today, head on over to the Locked On Big Ten podcast. We'll be on there later this week to talk about IU football with Nate Dickinson. As always, make sure to leave a rating and review if you guys haven't already. We'll also be back later this week with another special guest on Thursday's episode. We will get back to talking about football then and probably some more talk about the offense. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at @LO_Hoosiers. Follow us on Instagram if it's back up at Locked On Hoosiers as well. Be sure to head on over to the Locked On Bets podcast. No IU football game this week, so if you guys need some betting advice, not from us, head on over to listen to your boy Q, handicapping expert Lee Sterling. Follow the Locked On Bets podcast brought to you by BetOnline.ag or wherever you guys get podcasts. Have a great Tuesday, everybody, in LEO.